Okay, now that I have checked that the mic, the audio, and the camera are working properly, I can actually sit down and talk for an hour straight, because the last thing that I've recorded wasn't working. It's my second time recording this video. The last file that I have recorded turned out to be corrupt, so I'm recording this again. Haven't had my coffee yet, so please be patient with me. It's 6 in the morning. I'm not lying. Hopefully you can see. I was gonna edit this video this morning, and then I saw that the file is corrupt. I'm doing this again right now. I have no patience to wait. So we are recording this again now. I don't care that it's 6 in the morning. I don't care that I haven't had any food, coffee, or anything. I'm passionate about this topic. We have to talk about this, so we're getting this done. This just goes to show, guys, you need patience to persevere and to tackle obstacles. But this builds your mental resilience. But that's another topic for another video that I will be filming as well. I want to talk about how I personally manage my ADHD, and not in a perfect routine kind of way, but in a realistic human way. This is not medical advice. This is just what works for me, and maybe it will resonate with you too. But I have to give a general disclaimer. This is not medical advice. This is personal insight that I've acquired over the years living with ADHD. This is not prescriptive. Living with ADHD can feel very chaotic at times, but throughout the years, I've learned to work with my brain instead of trying to fix it and constantly fight it. Please remember, everyone's body is different. This is about awareness, not restriction or punishment. So guys, let's jump straight into it. I want to say that adjusting my lifestyle, adding some tweaks, has never felt about control. Removing sugar, limiting my caffeine intake, said Lena, started a video where she literally talked about not having coffee in the morning. You know what I mean? These lifestyle changes have never been about control. They've been about self-respect and supporting my nervous system. And although I do drink coffee, I have to limit my intake. Otherwise, my nervous system will be overloaded. I want to introduce a couple of statements. I want to jump into this video by saying the following. ADHD brains don't need extra stimulation. They need better regulation. I've noticed that if I don't eat well, if I don't sleep well, my focus basically doesn't stand a chance. And with regards to caffeine, I've stopped using caffeine to override exhaustion, and I've started listening to my body. I've stopped viewing discipline and routine as boring or as something that adds elements of control to my life. Instead, I now see my lifestyle as something that will add health benefits to my focus, my energy levels, and my concentration. So what actually helps me live with ADHD? One of the first things is supplements. Please, I'm gonna say this about 10 times in this video. This is not medical advice. What works for me might not necessarily work for you, so please be very careful and mindful. Before you start taking any supplements or vitamins, have a consultation with a doctor, with a medical professional, because sometimes you can do more harm than good by taking vitamins and supplements and any type of herbal medicine. Please be careful. The first thing that has helped me is something called Lion's Mane Mushroom Coffee. So there is a really cool brand. I would show it to you on camera if I was in my flat right now, but I'm in Tbilisi in Georgia on a work trip, so pictures will have to do, I'm sorry. There is a really cool brand, but you don't have to stick to this brand. And no, I'm not getting paid, guys. This is genuinely just something that works for me. I'm gonna add pictures right now of what I take. They make gummies with this lion's mane mushroom, and they also make coffee that is chocolate flavored, vanilla flavored, and coffee flavored itself. So I have replaced coffee with this. I guess you can call it mushroom coffee. And then I also take a serving of these gummies in the morning. This has changed the game entirely for me. My concentration is so much better. I am more focused. I find that these supplements support my memory, mental focus, and mental clarity. It's subtle. It's not some kind of magic fix. But over time, I've noticed that my thinking feels a lot more organized and less foggy. Friends, please, of course, always do your own research, consult a professional. But for me, this has been supportive. The next supplement is fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids. Some studies and meta-analyses show modest improvements in ADHD symptoms in participants who take these omega-3 fatty acids, especially in formulas that are high in EPA, which is a type of omega-3. The evidence shows that omega-3s help brain cell communication and reduce inflammation, which may improve focus and energy and mental clarity. The next big one is magnesium, which plays a role in nervous system regulation and stress response. Plenty of research shows that it helps with irritability, restlessness, and sleep, especially for someone who is deficient. I often take magnesium to help calm the nervous system, especially when I'm going through a stressful period at work or uni, because it helps calm my nervous system and it improves my sleep. The next one is zinc, which is involved in neurotransmitter and dopamine function. And plenty of research studies actually show that zinc may help improve impulsivity and emotional regulation, especially in people with low levels. Once again, these are not magic fixes, but they do support your brain chemistry. Consult with a professional though. Iron is a big one as well. Always get tested for iron deficiencies before starting to supplement it, because you can do more harm than good. Iron is essential for dopamine synthesis, which is directly related to attention and motivation. And supplementing only if blood levels are low may help treat ADHD symptoms. B complex vitamins like B6, B9, and B12 are important too. I take these, but only when I get tested and when I see that I'm deficient. I don't take them regularly, I have to say this. So recently, as I'm in Georgia now, I've had some blood tests done, and I've just found out that I am deficient in iron and B12. So I'm gonna have to start taking those. B vitamins support your energy metabolism and neurotransmitter function. And research shows that some people with ADHD report improvements in mental clarity and mood after they start taking B complex vitamins, and their B vitamin status becomes adequate. The last supplement is L-theanine, which is found in green tea. It's an amino acid that promotes relaxation and calm focus. And once again, it doesn't necessarily treat ADHD symptoms directly, but it adds to the factors that can help ease your anxiety and stress, which often co-occur with ADHD. Now, enough about supplements. Let's jump into lifestyle changes and habits. These are very important. So I actually used to take medication for ADHD before. I used to take Concerta, something called methylphenidate, which is actually banned in a lot of countries. And in the UK, you have to get prescription to take it. But I've stopped because although I did see improvements in my symptoms, it started affecting my heart rhythms, my sleep. It was causing insomnia. And also, I just realized I don't want to be dependent on medication for life, because if you look up the side effects of a lot of ADHD medication, the list is huge. For this exact reason, I will never take contraception, but that's another topic that we're going to talk about. Damn, I'm giving some controversial statements already. This channel is going to be fun. You guys will love it. There's going to be so much hate speech in the comments. I'm looking forward to it. Once again, there is no guarantee that the things that have worked for me will work for you. So please just consider this, do your own research, consult with professionals, and make that decision yourselves. Come to a final conclusion and a final decision yourselves. Don't listen to anyone, even to me. Just consider this information, take it in. I will leave links, do your own research, but you should never be 100% influenced by someone. It's only you who decides what to do with your health. The only person to listen to is your doctor. And still, sometimes doctors make mistakes. So be very careful. Do your own research, be mindful, and acquire as much knowledge on these topics as possible, please, because if you have been diagnosed with ADHD, you have this for life. On to lifestyle changes. Social media usage. Oh my God. This is huge. I limit my social media and I use a tool called Brick. I'm going to add pictures of that here. And no, guys, I'm not being sponsored by any of these brands. I've actually discovered Brick myself. I'm going to leave the link to their website under this video. But essentially, Brick is a tool that physically blocks your access to social media apps like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. You decide what you restrict yourself. So it physically blocks your access to these apps until you intentionally choose to unlock them. For me, this has been life-changing. So far, my record has been 40 hours of no usage of social media, and it's so life-changing. My friends, social media is designed designed to hijack your nervous system with constant novelty, quick rewards, endless scrolling. For ADHD brains especially, this can completely dysregulate your neurochemistry, leaving you overstimulated, restless, and unable to focus on deeper, more meaningful tasks. I just noticed that the more I scrolled, the worse my attention, my emotional regulation, and my motivation became. And I noticed a contrast when I would leave London to go on hikes or to go sailing in the countryside, because there, in those settings, I wouldn't have access to the internet sometimes, and all I could do was read a book. And I would go through books in a week, guys. And then upon my return back to London, a lot of my ADHD symptoms were actually gone for quite a while. It just goes to show how powerful social media is, so please be careful with it, guys. Reducing that input has helped my nervous system dramatically. Now let's talk about crowds, London, and overstimulation. I live in London, and this is a huge factor for me. I get overwhelmed in public places. Living in London in general can be very discombobulating. What a funny word, right? Crowds, noise, constant movement, public transport during peak hours. I personally find it deeply draining. That's why I try to avoid crowds when I can. And that's why I love leaving London sometimes, to go to the countryside or to quieter places. I find that nature and stillness help my brain reset in a way that really nothing else does. Guys, another thing that has changed my relationship with ADHD was realizing that it comes with a lot of strength too. My brain thrives when I multitask, but when I do it in the right way. I might be cooking, writing emails, listening to a lecture, and also writing something in my diary at the same time. For me, that level of stimulation keeps me more engaged than scattered. Over the years, I've identified my systemic weaknesses, but also my common strengths. And now I design my learning and work processes around them instead of trying to copy what neurotypical individuals do. I've also become very clear on what charges and what drains me. Some of the common draining factors for me include public places, crowds, social media, public transport during peak hours, too much socializing in 1 week, sorry friends, stress, too much technology, consuming too much online content, and yes, did I say social media usage? I personally find that all of these overstimulate my brain and my nervous system. With regards to things that recharge me, I'm going to list those. Exercising 5 days a week, having days where at least half of my day isn't overpacked back to back with meetings, aiming for 8 to 9 hours of sleep, although sometimes that can be a huge challenge because of my PTSD. If you've watched some of my other videos where I talk about this, you'll understand why. I even filmed one of my PTSD nightmares, that's what I call it. Meditation, reading in silence, libraries, therapy, naps, spending time in nature, animals, a healthy diet, stress management, but also stress prevention, and of course, spending time alone. I love that. This awareness alone has helped me prevent burnout so many times. Now let's talk about sleep and brain health. Healthy sleep is non-negotiable. When I don't get enough sleep, my creativity, memory, focus completely drop. My thinking becomes scattered, and I struggle to analyze and deeply comprehend information. And I'm sure this isn't just my personal experience. This has been backed up by plenty of scientific research. Chronic sleep deprivation significantly impairs cognitive function. Sometimes, for a lot of us perfectionists, the most productive thing that you can do is rest and sleep. This is for all my perfectionists out there, and I struggle with this too. I understand. Now, onto scheduling and priorities. This is important. I prioritize the hardest tasks in the morning because I know that that's when my brain has the most energy. And at the start of every day in the morning, when I write down my to-do list, I rank the tasks, not just in the order of their importance, but also in terms of how difficult, how mentally and cognitively draining they are. For tasks that include research, critical thinking, strategic planning, and very important decision making and coding. Oh my God, coding at university. I leave my morning slot and I try to get those over and done with in the morning so that I don't have to worry about those later on in the day. I know that in the afternoon, I'll probably have an energy slump and I won't be so focused. So if I can get it over and done with in the morning in the first half of my day, I really try my best to do that. And also, I live by my calendar. Yes, I'm one of those numbers freaks, and I genuinely believe that if it's not in my calendar, it's not happening. Organization and time management are essential, but it's also crucial to keep them realistic, not too rigid. Consistency matters more than perfection. If I've had a terrible night of sleep, I will skip a workout, I'll go home and have an early night, because fighting your body for too long doesn't lead to sustainable results, and sometimes you need that extra rest. My friends, remember, this is a long-term lifestyle. Living with ADHD needs a lifestyle that will work for you in the long run. This is not a short-term productivity challenge. Short-term extremes usually rebound, just like fad diets. If you starve your body, it pushes back always. So just like with weight loss, if you starve your body, you will gain the weight back. The same thing applies with rest and recovery. On to my next point, protecting rest and health. I intentionally schedule rest, meditation, exercise, and social events, and I add that to my calendar as well. This time is golden. I protect it like gold. No matter what your goals are, rest and your health are very important. Without your body and brain functioning well, nothing is going to work. Let's talk about diet and caffeine. From personal experience, one thing that's had a huge impact on my ADHD is diet, especially removing sugar and being very intentional with caffeine. For me, sugar creates massive spikes and crashes in energy and focus. I might feel good for a short moment, but then I find that my concentration and my focus drop, my mood becomes unstable, and I feel even more scattered and restless. Over time, I've noticed that sugar really dysregulates my brain and my nervous system. Even if I have a little bit of sugar, it's harder to wake up the next morning. I might even miss my alarm. That's how sensitive my brain is to artificial sugar. And no, guys, I'm not saying that you have to be super strict and you can never have a treat. Of course you can, but it's a treat for a reason. You can't have it every single day. And I found ways to have healthy snacks that are delicious, that also feel like dessert. But that is a topic for a different video. We're going to talk about that as well. I've just found healthier alternatives that don't have sugar. For chocolates, I've just replaced your traditional desserts and cakes with sugar-free alternatives or alternatives that include natural sugars. So I have things like protein bars, sugar-free protein cakes and muffins that I bake at home that my friends absolutely hate. But I like them because you know what? Your taste buds adjust to your diet. They really do. And nowadays, if I have something very sugary, I can't eat a lot of it because I'm very sensitive. My taste buds have become super sensitive to artificial sugars. If you give me some food and it has artificial sugar, I will instantly taste it. My body just doesn't do well with sugar. ADHD brains already struggle with dopamine regulation, and sugar gives you those quick hits that don't last. So you end up craving more stimulation, more scrolling, and more input. Removing artificial sugar has really helped my energy feel more stable throughout the day. That doesn't mean perfection. That doesn't mean that you can't have treats. It just means that you need to be mindful. I try to choose foods that support my brain instead of overstimulating it. And nowadays, I think it's a lot easier because there are plenty of sugar-free alternatives or healthier alternatives that contain natural ingredients. I also try to eat in a way that keeps my blood sugar stable. Enough protein, healthy fats. I really try to focus on protein. I'll talk about this more in a separate video. And I try to have proper meals instead of constantly snacking. When my blood sugar is unstable, my ADHD symptoms always get worse. More brain fog, more irritability, and much less focus. Now onto caffeine. I try to be very careful with caffeine. Although I do drink coffee and natural energy drinks, which I don't promote, I have to be super careful. For some people with ADHD, caffeine has loads of great benefits and it really helps them. But for me, too much caffeine can actually increase anxiety, restlessness, and my nervous system overload. It can make me feel productive at first, but then it worsens my focus and my emotional regulation later on. I avoid caffeine late in the day because it directly affects my sleep quality, and sleep quality is absolutely critical for ADHD function. Even small disruptions can have a big effect the next day. And I find that having caffeine later in the day really has a detrimental impact on my deep sleep stages. And I think it's a mental thing as well. I've stopped relying on caffeine to push through exhaustion. So nowadays I ask myself, do I need stimulation right now or do I actually need rest? This question alone has changed how I treat my body. Oh, look guys, the sun's out. I should probably hurry up because I have my meeting very soon. So in summary, I really do believe that ADHD brains need long-term regulation over short-term stimulation. I've learned that constantly chasing short-term stimulation with caffeine or through sugar or social media might feel good or feel like it's helpful for the brain in the short term, but it actually makes your ADHD symptoms worse in the long term. So what helps me is regulation, not stimulation. Stable energy, proper nourishment and nutrition, sleep, movement, and calm focus. 5 key points. That's what helps my brain think deeply, clearly, but also creatively. And once again, my friends, this is just personal experience. This is not prescriptive. Everyone's body is different. This is about awareness, not restriction or punishment. Removing sugar completely and limiting my caffeine intake has been about self-respect for my body and my nervous system instead of control or restriction, because I found that this supports my brain and my nervous system. Now, let's talk about the social and behavioral aspects of learning to live with ADHD. One aspect that's really overlooked is how ADHD and neurodivergence actually impact your emotional regulation. So emotional regulation and nervous system awareness are key. ADHD isn't just about attention, it's also about emotional intensity. Some tips that have worked for me include the following. Naming emotions out loud to reduce overwhelm. So saying things like, I feel overstimulated or overwhelmed or frustrated or restless right now. Journaling, writing down how you feel. Taking pauses before reacting, especially if in conflict or stressful situations. Grounding techniques like, this is going to sound super weird, but it actually works. Cold water on your wrists. Body scanning. So checking what you feel in your body. Sometimes my knees start to ache. Sometimes I feel so restless. Sometimes my eyes twitching. Paying attention to things like that. And breathing technique. This needs a separate video as well. Slow exhale breathing when you exhale for longer than you inhale. We need a separate video about breathing techniques. I'm going to make that happen. So why does this help? ADHD comes with heightened emotional reactivity. Regulating your nervous system helps focus indirectly by reducing background stress. The second factor, another important point to note with regards to lifestyle, is trying to find ways to reduce decision fatigue. ADHD brains burn energy on micro decisions. Some things that have worked for me include wearing the same or similar outfits or planning clothes ahead the night before your workday or an important meeting, because that leaves more time and more cognitive load and more headspace in the morning. When you're getting ready, your morning doesn't feel so rushed and your attention span isn't drained when you're getting ready in the morning. You have to make fewer decisions. I'm sorry if this sounds weird, but it actually works. I personally find that it works. Eating the same breakfasts or lunches on weekdays. I meal prep. It really works. It helps. Saves time. It saves the cognitive load. And I have to make fewer decisions, which leaves more time and energy on other things. And having default routines for low energy days. Because, once again, fewer decisions means more mental energy for creativity, thinking, and learning. The next skill that I've had to learn is externalizing memory, when you stop relying on your brain and your memory alone. And I believe this is a core ADHD skill because ADHD brains are not broken. They just don't store information in the same way. So externalizing it is a great skill to have and to apply. And some examples of that include writing down ideas immediately. I have like 9 journals. Voice noting instead of text when you feel tired. Using sticky notes, whiteboards, and visible reminders on your phone or around your workroom. But also journaling if you can. Having trusted brain dump apps or notebooks is great. In addition, guys, a lot of us with ADHD struggle with task initiation. So I'm going to share some task initiation hacks with you because starting is often the hardest part. And I'm sure many of you will relate deeply to this. Some simple tools that I use include the 2-minute rule, where I just literally set a timer for myself for 2 minutes. And I tell myself, Lena, just start. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. Just start. Just at least try. Do it for 2 minutes. And then you can stop and you can quit if you really don't feel like doing it. In 99.9% of times, I actually just continue doing it after those 2 minutes. So it really works. Also, starting with the messiest and not the most important step. So if there's a task or a step that I find super challenging, I start with that. Because once I start, it actually feels a lot easier doing it as I'm performing it. So the other tasks won't feel as draining. At least that's how it works for me. I also find that pairing tasks with music, audiobooks, and lectures helps a lot. And also something that I call body doubling. Sorry if this sounds weird. I go to a lot of co-working spaces and I just sit near other people and I do my work. Also, I have a lot of, this is going to sound really bad and I hope my boss is not watching this, but I have a lot of virtual meetings that could have been an email. And during those meetings, if I have a few minutes, I'll make some notes or I'll reply to emails as someone is talking. And actually, it's quite productive. I find it works for me. My next point, compassionate self-talk. This is huge. And I think this one adds value because shame is one of the biggest ADHD drains for us. What I started doing is reframing I'm lazy as my brain simply needs a different approach. I talk to myself in a way that I would talk to my friend who has ADHD. I've completely let go of neurotypical standards of productivity. And all of this matters because self-criticism actually worsens your executive dysfunction, but compassion improves consistency. I will try to find studies to back this up as well. And research studies back this up again. Next step, energy-based planning, not time-based planning. I plan my days around my energy levels, not my hours. I split tasks into high-energy tasks and low-energy tasks. And I've accepted that productivity is not linear. Some days will feel more productive than others, and that's okay. If I haven't had a great night of sleep, I won't be too harsh on myself. I'll try to be realistic. But if I have a day when my meeting got cancelled or when someone didn't show up and I have an extra hour, or if I'm feeling very energized, I will try to make use of that. I'll listen to my body cues and I'll try to pay attention to my energy levels. And I won't be too harsh on myself and I won't be too strict with the hours. It sounds like this contradicts my scheduling or my calendar point, but flexibility is key as well. Sometimes meetings get cancelled, sometimes strikes happen in London, sometimes events get moved because someone fell sick. So you have to be able to adapt and to adjust. So I just try to be reasonable, guys, and I try to be realistic. If I know that if I got 4 hours of sleep, but my calendar says that I have to write code for 4 hours in the afternoon, and I know that it's not going to happen, I try to adjust. So I'll do a 1 hour session of writing code, but I'll do it super well and I'll just do my best in that 1 hour instead of trying to push myself to code for 4 hours to then end up with only 1 page of code. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's best to do that 1 hour of work or studying and then get 3 hours of sleep extra because then you'll perform a lot better the next day. So once again, energy-based planning is key. Next point, sensory regulation. I've already mentioned this. This is often overlooked, but it's super relatable. Reducing sensory overload frees up your cognitive capacity. I've already talked about the tools that I use to limit my social media usage, but also other examples include like wearing noise-cancelling headphones in public places, using soft lighting instead of harsh lighting, wearing comfortable clothing, and trying to minimize distraction as much as possible when working. It's one thing to have people working next to you and sitting in a co-working space. It's another thing to have your phone next to you that keeps popping up with notifications every couple of seconds. That will never work, guys. Which leads me onto the next point, notifications, attention, and protecting your focus. How you use your phone is so key. Personally, I keep my phone on the do not disturb mode all the time, and I don't let any notifications come through apart from calls from very important people to me. Messages, social media, emails, and other notifications are all silenced. For ADHD brains, constant notifications are incredibly disruptive. Every sound, vibration, or pop-up pulls your attention away from what's important and forces your brain to switch tasks. That constant task switching is exhausting and it makes focus, memory, and emotional regulation so much harder. Even if you don't consistently check your phone notifications, your nervous system still reacts to the interruptions. Over time, this keeps your brain in a state of hyper alertness and calm focus. So by keeping my notifications off, I'm protecting my attention and reducing unnecessary stimulation. I check messages and emails intentionally throughout my day instead of being pulled into them reactively. For me, this has made a huge difference in how calm, present, and fully focused I feel throughout my day as I'm performing my work duties and university responsibilities. Now, on to social factors, boundaries with people and availability. Social burnout is so real for ADHD, and I've had to learn how to say no to people the hard way. You need to be able to say no without over-explaining. You need to schedule social time intentionally and protect your alone time as recovery time. If you say yes to too many things, activities, and people, you will spread yourself thin, which will just lead to burnout and exhaustion even more. Next point, acceptance over constant optimization. If you feel behind, please remember, progress looks uneven. It's never a straight line. Rest is part of productivity, so make sure that you get enough rest. And some days will be messier than others, but this doesn't mean that you're failing. Please keep this in mind. Nobody is perfect. And living with ADHD, especially if you work in the corporate world or the business world, is already super hard. So please, I'm sure you're already doing super well, and you are probably being too harsh on yourself because you compare yourself to neurotypical individuals who operate differently. And once again, guys, another disclaimer about individual differences. This is huge. This is important. And I keep talking about this. ADHD looks different for everyone. Your symptoms may present differently. And what I've spoken about is what works for me. This might not work for you. I encourage you to try different things to figure out what lifestyle hacks, tweaks, and changes work for you. If you take medication, be careful with what you take. Pay attention to the dosage. Journal, write down how you feel after you take that medication, and always consult with a professional. For a period of my life, Concerta has helped me. And please don't think that I'm anti-medication. No, I'm not at all. For a lot of people, it can be useful and life-changing. But personally, I've started experiencing complications. Because my sleep was affected, I realized that in the long run, poor sleep actually worsens my ADHD symptoms, which was causing even more burnout. And I've had to be honest with myself and acknowledge that I didn't want to rely on stimulant medication for my entire life. That realization wasn't easy, but it was an important one. For this reason, I made a decision to stop under guidance and focus on long-term regulation rather than short-term stimulation. As you can tell, since then I've been managing my ADHD with lifestyle changes and diet. I'm very careful with quick carbohydrates and sugar. I try to keep my blood sugar stable. I focus on protein. I've already mentioned all of this, but the change in my energy levels has been massive. When energy is stable, ADHD is more manageable. When energy is chaotic, everything feels harder. Please remember that ADHD isn't one size fits all, and that ADHD burnout is more common than you think. At one point, I've had a really important realization. Sometimes what feels like ADHD symptoms is actually burnout. ADHD burnout refers to mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion that comes from constantly managing stress, expectations, and symptoms. When burnout happens, even the most simple tasks like cleaning, replying to texts or emails can feel impossible. And no, it's not your brain being lazy. It's your brain running out of fuel. I will leave links to this under this video. This has actually been described and recognized widely by ADHD clinicians and advocacy groups as a cycle of overwhelm, exhaustion, and reduced functioning that many adults with ADHD experience. What I've noticed and what's reflected in informal research and community discussions is that when I go into nature, switch off my phone, read, stop doom scrolling and give my nervous system a break, even for a short period like a week, the intensity of my symptoms can reduce significantly. That tells a lot about how much stress and overstimulation contribute to ADHD and to how it shows up in your day-to-day life. This doesn't mean that ADHD goes away, but it does mean that sometimes our environment and energy levels play a huge role in how our symptoms feel. A general reminder, ADHD is not a childhood condition. Many adults live with it too. Most research confirms that about 3 to 6% of adults worldwide live with ADHD and meet the criteria to be diagnosed with ADHD. This means that millions of people experience the challenges and the strengths of ADHD throughout their adult lives in relationships, work, creativity, learning, and daily functioning. So now let's talk about how ADHD is not all negative and how it comes with strengths too. Some positive influences include creative and big picture thinking, rapid idea generation and divergent thinking, hyper-focus on things that really interest you, intuition and pattern recognition skills, and adaptability and energy in dynamic environments. Many individuals with ADHD thrive in roles that require innovation over routine or that let them follow their interests deeply. And there's real psychological and occupational research showing that individuals with ADHD often bring unique strengths to creative, entrepreneurial, and problem-solving work environments. But there are also real challenges. ADHD symptoms like inattention, impulsivity, and executive function difficulties can make tasks like planning, organization, time management, and sustained focus harder, especially in the corporate and business environments that value monotony and rigid structure. That's part of why traditional school and work settings can make it feel especially draining for ADHD brains. And of course, there is research evidence that I will attach in the video description to back up this point. So it's not that ADHD is only a deficit, it's a different cognitive style that has both challenges and strengths. And part of managing it is learning how to utilize the strengths while supporting the challenges. There is emerging evidence suggesting that environmental factors like screen time, social media, and overstimulation can make your ADHD symptoms a lot worse and more intense over time. Plenty of research has linked excessive screen time and unstructured social media use with worsened attention hyperactivity and difficulty with impulse control, especially when they disrupt sleep or this becomes habitual. That's why I said, my friends, be careful with your phones, social media, doom scrolling. Make sure that you do things that clear the noise in the brain and make your focus easier. I'm going to conclude the video by saying that ADHD is not just a checklist of difficulties. It's a whole neurocognitive style that interacts with your stress, environment, lifestyle, diet, and habit in complex ways. There is no single way to manage it, but understanding burnout, prioritizing nervous system regulation, and recognizing both strengths and challenges has been transformative for me. I know I've spoken a lot about organization and calendar and scheduling, but another point that I'd like to mention is please remember to also make time for the things you love. Joy, creativity, curiosity, and rest shouldn't be luxuries. They are essential for balance. ADHD doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be understood, respected, and worked with. In a culture of productivity, in a world that's now hyper-focused on increasing efficiency, operationalization, increasing speed, and constant output, especially now with AI in the corporate and business world, there is a lot of pressure to do more, perform quicker, move faster, optimize everything, and keep pushing. But I really want to remind you to check in with yourself. It's important to pause and acknowledge how far you've already come, to remind yourself of how well you are doing, because very often we completely forget that. We are so focused on what needs to be done, and we overlook the progress that we've already made. Sometimes what we interpret as ADHD symptoms like brain fog, restlessness, inability to focus, and other symptoms are your body isn't your ADHD getting worse. Sometimes those ADHD-like symptoms are your nervous system trying to tell you, slow down, you've been doing too much, you need recovery. And in a culture that constantly glorifies productivity, it can be really hard to hear that message or to believe that rest is allowed. But remember, rest isn't failure. It's part of productivity. It's part of regulation and long-term sustainability. If you don't give your body and your brain enough time to recover, they will eventually force you to. But through burnout, exhaustion, or your ADHD symptoms getting louder. So please, friends, be gentle with yourselves. Take moments to recognize your effort, your resilience, and how far you've already come. Sometimes the most responsible thing you can do for your ADHD, creativity, and your long-term goals is to rest. I'm gonna wrap it up here, but I want to say I would love to hear from you. Please leave in the comments your tips, your tricks to manage ADHD if you have it. Share what's helped you, what hasn't. I think we learn so much from each other, and these conversations really do matter. Thank you so much for watching this video and for being here. Please remember that you matter, your experiences matter, your voice matters, and please take care of yourself. Always Prioritize your health. Never sacrifice it for your boss, for your company. Never sacrifice your well-being for anyone or anything. If you have any questions for me, or if you'd like to share your thoughts or give me any feedback, you have my email address in the video description below. Feel free to reach out through comments or by sending me an email. Thank you for being here. I want to close this video by saying the following. The goal isn't to become more productive. It's to build a life that your brain can actually live in. Thank you guys. Take care.